Welcome, folks. We are joined by a colleague, a good friend in the media, Curtis Sliwa, 77 WABC, every day from noon to 3. How you doing, Curtis?
I've had better days. I'll tell you why, because I transitioned from WABC, remember, on talk radio for 30 straight years. So I'm addicted to talking into the microphone. And now, all of a sudden, I'm talking to the pigeons, the birds, the trees, and a lot of voters out there to get them to vote for me to become mayor in 2021. So I've had to transition. It's an addiction, talking on radio. So I'm weaning myself from that, Steve. I'm weaning myself from that.
I hear, by the way, Curtis is a candidate for mayor. We will also work to have Mayor de Blasio, and also check out Metro Focus. They're covering the mayoralty as well. But we have Curtis on to talk about a whole range of issues. Curtis, let me ask you this. As we tape on the 9th of March, it'll be seen later. What are most people who call into the station with your show wanting to talk about?
Locally, it's crime, quality of life issues, the homelessness, the emotionally disturbed, the push-ins on the subways, everything having to do with the neutering, making the police impotent, reactive instead of proactive. So that's locally. Nationally, people are still sort of getting down from that Trump mountaintop without jumping off and committing suicide. So they're beginning to try to figure out, where is the former president going? What is the direction of the Republican Party? Obviously, most of the callers to WABC tend to be conservative, tend to be Republicans or libertarians. So I think a lot of it is focused on that. And obviously, the beginnings of President Joe Biden's administration with all the stimulus money. And obviously, a lot of our listeners are wondering, why are we giving money to people who don't need money? I thought money should go to the people who really need the money.
Hold on, Curtis. Wait a minute. And this is, again, this program is about policy and issues that matter. Curtis, now, are you saying, or are you saying that many of your listeners are asking, why is so much of the $1.9 trillion stimulus package as we speak right now in the House, it may pass, let's just assume that. You're saying most of it not going to those who need it?
No. I mean, look at it. There's so much money that is going to people who have already been gainfully employed. They're getting a stimulus check. Now, I can't conceptualize that. Maybe you can help me with that, Steve. I understand those who are down and out, who don't have a job, whose unemployment out, the small businesses that have been to close or on the verge of closing. Why would you be sending money to people who have been gainfully employed? In fact, according to the stats, have been banking their money because there's almost been nothing else to do with their money because they've been chained to a radiator or an air conditioner at home for the past year, ever since the lockdown. How does that make any sense?
So that's so interesting, because the Democrats will argue that in order to get this passed, they needed to have, they don't call it pork, they don't call it fat, but there are definitely pieces of the $1.9 trillion not directly going to vaccines, not directly going to teachers, not directly going to cities and states and people and small businesses and not-for-profits. We'll see how that plays out. Hey, Curtis, let me do this. Again, because we are taping on the 9th of March. The other thing, I'm surprised you didn't mention this, and we're not the show to check out every day what's going on with Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York. You smile right away, because
what a hot mess he is. And the chickens have come home to roost. Steve.
What does that mean?
I've been dealing with first Mario Cuomo, the father. I've been dealing with Andrew the Cuomo and his brother Chris for a long, long time. And boy, they have created an enemies list. Look at it once, check it twice. It's huge. So now that Andrew Cuomo has wounded himself by lying about the number of patients who passed away in the nursing homes. By the way, had he apologized about that, he probably would have been forgiven and given a pass. Murphy in New Jersey didn't speak as much, but he's also just as guilty.
In fact, Curtis, I'm going to disclose, I was on Curtis's show. We actually spoke about leadership and crisis communication. And I said, not in this role, but as an analyst, that I thought he should acknowledge that a mistake was made and own it. And not only that they made the decision to send them back into nursing homes, people were sick, but then the undercount, which appears to potentially be intentional, Curtis?
Papered over, intentional. It's a cover-up. And for that, Andrew Cuomo has been wounded badly. But, you know, he's not alone. When is the last time you actually heard an elected official from either party take blame for a decision that they made? They're pretentious, they're omnipotent, and especially with Andrew Cuomo, let's face it, many people on the far left, they put him up on a pedestal. He was embraced by Hollywood. He got an Emmy Award. How do you write a book in the middle of a pandemic crisis about leadership, and now that book isn't even going to be sold because it's such a joke? And then naturally, all the sexual harassment issues from a guy who was constantly saying when others were being criticized for possible acts of sexual harassment, like Judge Kavanaugh, I can go through a whole list, off with their heads, off with their heads, no chance, no public hearing.
No due process.
Right. So it's sort of like, again, all these officials are guilty of this. Do as I say, but not as I do. So he's in a battle for survival, but I'd like to see where any of his friends are. Now, one person he was very loyal to from the very beginning of the campaign, never hesitated, never vacillated, to his credit, is President Joe Biden. I think if he begins to distance himself ever more rapidly, then it's the end. It's the end of Andrew Cuomo.
Question. What do you believe, Curtis, the long-term implications will be of the Trump presidency, not only on this nation, but on the Republican Party? What do you see?
It's really hard to know, because the further he is away from the epicenter of Republican political activity, he can certainly continue to have an impact. But remember, does absence make the heart grow fonder, or do some new leaders emerge? Now, one issue clearly that's emerging that is to former President Trump's strength is the issue on the border. Joe Biden has basically started to open up the borders.
Illegal immigration.
A lot of people, even moderate Democrats, are beginning to scratch their head and say, wait, we don't let normal commerce and traffic go across the borders because of the pandemic. Now we're allowing immigrants to cross the border, to stay here, to disappear, and hopefully show up for a court hearing. We know that's a policy that obviously Trump is going to exploit, and the Republicans are going to exploit. It's just a question if Nikki Haley goes her own way, Marco Rubio, Tom Cotton, some of those who profess to be loyal to Trump now may see an avenue towards the presidency, because let's face it, there are a lot of Republicans there in leadership who would hope that former President Trump just stays in Mar-a-Lago, plays a lot of golf, and leaves them to the RNC business.
If you want to hear more from Curtis Sliwa, check out 77 WABC every day from 12 to 3. As always, Curtis Sliwa, thanks for joining us, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Oh, wait, hey, remember you got a website in, Curtis Sliwa for Mayor.com. Notice, taking the beret off. You're the first to see this without the beret.
Thanks, my friend.
Definitely.
We'll talk soon.
Definitely.
I'm Steve. That's Curtis. We'll be right back.
Thanks, Steve.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by PSE&G, New Jersey Sharing Network, NJM Insurance Group, Delta Dental of New Jersey, Operating Engineers, Local 825, Fedway Associates, Inc., IBEW Local 102, Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, St. Joseph's Health, and by these public-spirited organizations, individuals, and associations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State, and by Employers Association of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by Insider NJ, and by ROI-NJ.
Being a kid is all about playing, laughing, and having fun. Doing what they do best, from rolling in leaves to building a snowman. But when illness or injury slows your little one down, you want the best pediatric care possible. Turn to the experts at the St. Joseph's Children's Hospital to get your superhero feeling super again. St. Joseph's Health, helping kids be kids.